Welcome, everyone, to today's show. Boomer and Gen X are walking into a bar, coming to you from the Rabbit Run studio, where you, as our listeners, will experience some wit and wisdom, some smartassery, and a mother and a daughter questioning, are we even related? My name is Jane. My co-host is my daughter, Bobby. And for the next, 25, 30 minutes, we're here to entertain you. Bobby, are you still having headaches from that concussion you had?
Yeah, I still am. I'm fighting a migraine right now. It's pretty bad. So we kind of stole some of your weather.
No kidding, because
So
it's not going to be 88 here. That's for sure.
yeah, it's sunny, it's nice, and I'm really depressed right now because I can't get on my motorcycle.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, Dr. Domain can get on his motorcycle, but I can't get on mine. And I played pickleball on Monday and went up into the bleachers to retrieve a ball. And when I was coming back down from the bleachers, I missed some steps. And okay, it really honestly wasn't funny at the time. I suppose it sounds funny now. But
How do you always do this to yourself,
I
though?
don't know. I'm like
I
the
get a
poster
call.
child.
What was it? You guys were in Pella, and I got a call that you stepped off a curb wrong, and you think you broke your ankle.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll be all right. I'll just walk it off. So I played another game before I decided I was going to leave, but my ankle is still terrible. And my little finger is still black because I thought maybe I broke it, but I didn't really break it. I think I just jammed it. But the worst thing is I hurt my knee. And knee injuries on old people, not a good thing. So I'm trying to get that thing all healed up. I know. It's like I'm the poster child for how to have accidents or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
You're like those safety videos that all the companies have.
Yeah.
You're the one that just trips over air and falls
And and the sad thing was safety was under my direction for what 40 years. And it's like I was such the advocate and the director for safety, and now I can't even. I'm like a rag doll. I step on something and I just fall to the ground. It's like Raggedy Ann's down again. I don't know. It's tough to get old. But I had a new pair of tinny runners on, and I thought, oh, I'm going to blame the tinny runners, but I can't because I missed some steps. So anyway, there's that. And then last night we had a couple of friends over for supper, and it was so nice. There's such sweet people down here in Georgia, some friends of ours, and they play pickleball too. And we just had a gay old time. And I just have to ask, so Bobby, do you remember when we used to have dinners at the house, like Thanksgiving and all that business? And I would put out all the good china, and I would put out like either 6, 8 or more pieces of silverware. And you kids would come in, and what I was trying to do is teach them a few manners, which forks to use, which spoons to use, which glasses are for what.
How to set the table properly.
How to set it, all of that stuff, what to do, what not to do. And you guys used to pick up all the silverware except for a fork. And you'd bring it into the kitchen and go, I'm not going to be using any of this. And I thought, well... There's a bad thing. There's a bad thing right there. So
we know what forks go with what. We just don't care.
Yeah, I know. And so I do this for Dr. Domain too, not just for company, but like if we're having a hot dish, even now, I put the plates in the oven to warm them up. Do you ever do that? So that when the food goes on there, it's going to be warm.
My plates are from the thrift store, so I don't even know if they would
go into the oven.
In the oven.
I put glasses in the freezer, for drinks and stuff like that.
You guys have all that fancy stuff though, but we have this place called Slim Chickens.
Yeah.
And they have these desserts that come in mason jars.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I get the desserts that are in the mason jars. Guess what? Those are our glasses now.
Are they real mason jars? Are they glass?
They're real mason jars.
Oh, that's kind of cool. That's very cool.
That's what we drink out of. We don't have like different glasses. We have Slim Chicken's mason jars.
Well, I think you're so funny when you say, "Oh, you guys have all that fancy stuff." This is the honest to God's truth, listeners. Most of the stuff that I find is at a thrift store. I mean, seriously. I buy stuff from the thrift store, bring it home, clean it up, use it. And so, yeah, it's not like we have fancy stuff. Do you think, Dr. Domain? I mean, we got some cheap plates and we've got glasses that I just got yesterday or the day before from a thrift store.
No, I'd say we're pretty conservative that way.
Yeah.
Except for toasters.
Oh my goodness.
4 slices. Who needs a 4-slice toaster?
He's got
I have a 4-slice toaster.
No, wait. Stand by. No, wait.
That's extravagant.
So he had this 4-slice toaster that he paid $200 and some for. Okay.
Oh my God.
And
it was stupid.
It was way stupid.
Yeah, I was up there
And
with the boat purchase
so
on stupidest things I've bought.
Yeah, something you could throw into the river over the bridge. And so we get to this house and I said, you know me, I don't want anything on my counters. So no toaster is going to be on the counter. So I put it in the cupboard down below and I said, man, this toaster weighs a ton. I hate lifting it and put it back, lifting it and putting it back, you know? And so he says, oh, I'll put in one of those shelving units that is like, you know, for your mixer, you know, where they come up, they pop up. And so he put that in. Unfortunately, the toaster was too big for it. So in essence, he built this whole thing and it really did take a long time because he had to modify it and everything. And now we don't even use that toaster. We had to buy a new toaster.
That is the most expensive forbidden bath bomb that I've ever heard of. Who pays $200 for a toaster?
Raise your hand, Dr.
No,
Domain.
I think you're exaggerating a little bit.
No,
it wasn't quite that much. I'm pretty sure
it was $195 plus tax and shipping.
I paid $39.95 for a toaster that also made the rest of the ingredients at the same time for an egg McMuffin.
Hey,
and
nice.
You're spending $200 for that? I mean, come on.
But we can get 4 slices of bread.
Yeah,
in there.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
and bagels. You can put bagels in it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
bagels, frozen stuff.
You
all
put
that
frozen
stuff.
pizzas
We're
in
losing
them too.
this battle. You do realize that, don't you? Well, anyway, we can't even use that toaster now. And after he's done all this construction about it, for it. And
God.
I know it's silliness. Hey, today we are going to talk about kind of a serious subject, right?
Kind of, and I think you guys just kind of proved a point on what we're going to be talking about. Once, you know, people get older and things, maybe they should not be in places for big decisions any longer.
Oh my gosh.
Is she implying something?
I think she is.
Hey, I bought that toaster years ago.
Oh, not that many years ago.
When I was
Don't
much
even.
younger than I
That's
am.
even worse because $200 years ago is way more than $200.
That's like $1 million today. Yeah. Yeah. So you're so silly, doctor. Doc, I got to be honest with you. You need a term limit. So we are going to be talking about term limits today. And there's so many people who say, oh, what we need are term limits. And you kind of go, well, if there's so many people in favor of it, why is it that it hasn't happened yet? You know, we all know no one is going, the people who have to vote on term limits are the ones that will be affected. They don't want to put themselves out of a job, right? Despite, you know, high public support. And I've seen stats of over like 80% on congressional and Senate terms. It does require a constitutional amendment.
Right. And that's part of the problem is, you know, we're talking about amending the Constitution, and that has been a big argumentative point for a long time because, you know, we had people saying, oh, the president wants to get rid of term limits for presidency, but wants to introduce term limits for this and that. So once you talk about constitutional amendments, people tend to get kind of iffy on it because for some reason, they think that a constitution written hundreds of years ago is still relevant today without any kind of amendments.
Well, the vast majority of the Constitution is still applicable, and it was written in a way that should stand the test of time. But what happens is, and you mentioned it early on as a joke, but you really weren't joking and it kind of hurt my feelings, is that people get older, right? And
Right.
so, but some of the fear is they would be removing some experienced officials, people who, are very much empowered, people who are very well known by their constituents. And in addition, hate to put it this way, they know where the bodies are buried.
Well, and I mean, let's get into that a little bit because, you talked about like Senate and Congress. There's currently no federal term limits for Congress or Senate. So they can serve unlimited, consecutive term. Now, the Supreme Court justices, they kind of have a lifetime term. Like once they're in there, unless they
Screw
get
up.
taken, unless they screw up or they retire, they're in there for a lifetime. And I mean, that's for a lot of people, that is a long time. I mean, they talk about a term limit for for the Supreme Court justices. They're talking like an 18-year term limit.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. Do you know how much can change in 18 years? And you go back and you look at some of these people who have been in their positions for 30, 40, even 50 years. Look at how much has changed in that time, how much has happened, how much has evolved. And you're looking at people who are not only rooted in the old ways and have their set ways of doing it, but now they are older. I mean, you're talking, 60, 70, 80-year-olds who maybe don't see the things that the younger generations are facing. And a lot of times, it's a comfortable thing. People do get comfortable with them. People say, oh yeah, I know that judge. I know that senator. I know that congressman. 20 years ago, he did great things. So I'm just going to keep him in there. Well, what's he done since 20 years ago?
Yeah.
It's almost like they get comfortable riding that horse and they just don't want to get off of it because it's a familiar face.
Yeah. So I was looking at some stats on like the incumbents that are in power right now. And believe it or not, as much as people complain about, wanting term limits, they want to change, they want to see new faces, they want new blood in there, everybody's getting too old. The re-election rates for these incumbents is around 98%.
Which is crazy to me.
And
it's crazy.
But they attribute that to like fundraising advantages and, gerrymandering and name recognition. And let's face it, when you know somebody, like if I knew a congressman and that's the congressman that I've always voted for, to look at somebody new, that's hard to do because you already know his past track record or her past track record. And to take somebody new on, you're going, now they have to learn things. And, do we have that kind of time? And if you set term limits, are they even going to learn that much during that time period?
Right. And you have to look at also the lobbyists. You have to look at the money backing these people. Once they're in for so many terms, they have so much money backing them. So, you see on commercials or signs or mailers, familiar faces and familiar names. Oh, this person's been, in seat for 15 years. Why would we remove him? They have the money to do that. And then, you see a new face or a new name on the ballot and you're like, who is this person?
Right.
Because they don't have the backing. They don't have the money behind them. And like you said, they know where the bodies are buried.
Right.
So they actually have big corporations, big companies that have their hooks in them because they've been there for so long and they say, okay, we're going to back you for, $500,000 for your next reelection. We're going to cover these costs. Now they have their hooks in them. They're going to have their hooks in them the whole time. So that company, that corporation is going to push for that person to stay in power because now that company has power.
Right. I mean, it's always follow the money. And
always.
It's interesting. I read an article about because you mentioned the lobbyists, about the unelected lobbyists and the special interest groups that, hold institutional knowledge. Once somebody leaves office, a lot of times that information or those leaders don't follow the new elect. So it's almost like you've got somebody in there that stands in there like a lieutenant governor. They don't do anything except cut ribbons, right? You've got lobbyists in there and you think that they're doing the work, but the fact is you've got unelected leaders out there that you never see. And
Right.
they're the ones who are really driving a lot of, what's happening, a lot of the lawmaking, a lot of the support towards different congressmen, senators, lobbyists, that sort of thing. I want to ask you this. In the U.S., have we ever had, well, let me ask you this first. What amendment has term limits in it in the Constitution?
For the president?
There's not.
There is.
No, I'm just saying there's more than just the president. There's limits. There's term limits. But they're how many times you can do it.
Yeah.
Like the president can only go 10 years, right?
Right.
He can serve like halfway through some other president.
Like a succession.
But then like representatives, they only serve 2-year terms, but the number of times they can do it is unlimited. That's, that's what I was saying.
I guess, and I that's a good
senators,
clarification. But it's the 22nd Amendment, and that is where it talks about for the president. Has the United States ever had real term limits where they can only run once or twice? This is a question for you too.
Other than the president?
Yeah.
What was the question?
The question was, has the United States ever had a system or an amendment by which somebody could, let's say that a congressman can run for 2 years, but he can do it, right now it's consecutively. He can do it as many times as he wants. But have we ever had any type of limit where, okay, if you ran for 2 years and then you do another 2 years, you're done? Have we ever had any limits like that in the United States?
Yeah, the presidential limit.
No, we're not talking about the president. I said not the president.
Oh, okay.
I know that some cities for mayor won't let them run consecutively so long, but they have to take a break, but then they can run again. So it's not like they can't run again after their break, but I don't know of any other.
No.
That's a good one.
And the question is,
the
the answer is no. We've never had that in the United States. So what Dr. Domain was referencing, were you looking at the 22nd Amendment?
No.
What were you looking at?
I was looking at the difference in the 2-year term for the representative and the 6-year term for a senator.
Okay.
And was trying to understand why is there such a difference. The essence of it is what I understand to be the Great Compromise, where the House is the hot house. That's where all the latest things are happening and people are coming and going. So you get 2-year terms for them. But then the Senate is kind of the cooling house where there's long-term stability. And I question whether that was the origins of why there's no limit on how many terms they can serve.
So tell us what the definition of a hot house and a cool house are.
The House of Representatives was intended to be the people's house, right?
Okay.
And I think that that's how it came to be called. I don't know if it's called that, but that's just what I read out of it. It's more of to be really highly sensitive to what's going on in
the public
in the
needs,
world
listening
and the
to
public
them.
needs. And then your senators are there to kind of
take it from there.
Yeah, they're an insulator between just all the various things that are going on.
So the senators
The
are
hot
in the
stuff.
hot house?
No, the House of Representatives. So they've got the 2-year term.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
and then
the
your
lower houses.
senators are there to kind of insulate it from that, and they're there for continuity purposes, which might have been, maybe that was the rationale for the way that the amendment was written.
And
to
it makes,
not
I
have
mean,
terms.
it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, to have those levels, like here, we're out with the people, we're listening to the people, we're getting the people's concerns, we're bringing them forward, and then they go to another level, and then they get voted on, right? And so it's like, but what's happened now is you don't see that the people's concerns are being listened to. The representatives are taking their own feelings, taking their own positions, and saying that is of the people.
Again, I think that's further supporting 2-year terms for representatives. And
So
we see a lot more churn in the House than we do in the Senate. In the Senate, we've got people there that have made a career out of it.
Right.
So my
And-
understanding for hot house and cool house is, and I have heard this term before. I had a really good history teacher and government teacher. So the hot house refers more to like a shorter term. So I think it's like, before they're reelected, but they go out and they get the hot button issues. They go out and they get, all these little issues that come up, and they throw them together and they push them on, and they say, this is what my constituents want. This is what we need to talk about. The Senate is the cool house, the cooling house, because they are more tenured. They're supposedly in there for longer. And they're there to slow things down, to say, okay, we understand this is the issue, but the way that you're presenting it is not going to pass because of this, this, and this. So we need to slow down. We need to look at the issues. We need to rewrite it, or you need to rewrite it, so that we have a better chance of passing this through.
Okay. And that makes sense.
That was my understanding.
Yeah. Is that the way you understand it, Dr. Domain?
Yeah, I think we were saying the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think where everyone gets concerned about term limits is they see these older individuals that are sitting in a Senate seat for 40 years or whatever.
And nothing's been done.
Perhaps.
Or
Well, it's
very
not that
little.
nothing's been
Right.
done. It's just that you have I'm not saying this to be mean, you have a geriatric person who's in the seat.
Now we're talking about ageism,
representing-
not terms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's
But
an aspect to ageism here.
There
I mean,
is. There
Yeah.
is. But, you have a geriatric person who's been there for 40 years, who's sitting in a seat, who's supposed to be representing the 20 and 30-year-olds, but has no idea of the issues that are presented in a way that 20 and 30-year-olds would present them or fight for them, because they're so set in their ways. They've always done this. They've always passed this. They've always lobbied for this.
Right.
And so
Right.
they get set in their ways. They get set in, the good old boys club of, well, this is 1950s America type thing still. So we're going to treat it as such, not realizing that there's a lot of issues out there that they don't have to face. I just think they're out of touch. I think they're out of touch. After a
I
certain
don't
point.
disagree
Wait,
with
who's
some
out of touch?
that.
Are
Some
you
of
talking
that.
about senators or representatives or both? And are you
I'm
only
talking about-
basing it on age?
I'm not basing it on age. I'm basing it on time in office, I'll say. Because like I said, they get comfortable. A lot of them don't have a forward thinking perspective. They have a perspective of, okay, well, I came into office in 1963 and now it's, 2020 and we have this, like, let's say the COVID virus. Well, they're going to have a completely different and a lot of times outdated view on what they need to do versus someone who is 35 years old, who's in the trenches, in both sides of not only an older generation, but a younger generation. They can understand both sides of it. They just kind of have more perspective on what's going on with boots on the ground rather than somebody, who's been sitting up in Senate or Congress for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah,
And-
I would argue you're still talking about age.
Yeah, I would
But
too.
but the other point, I'm sorry to interrupt. The other point is that isn't that what our election process is all about?
It is, and that's why I
It is.
mentioned, what the reelection percentages are. As much as people don't like it, why? Aside from age, Bobby, and I get what you're saying, because you kind of look at everybody, and we know what 70, 80-year-olds, how slow we get. I'm not there yet. Let's not act like I am. But wouldn't it make more sense, regardless of age, that you look at what their track record is? I mean, if you've got somebody who's in office right now and they're 75 years old and they're still making progress and they're still, working diligently, bipartisan to, get things approved or, make their position or listen to the people, and move the country forward as opposed to worrying about what their age is.
No, I totally agree with that. My thing is it's a combination of things. It's not just the age thing. It's also, like we discussed before, when you're sitting for so long, you have the lobbyists, you have the backing of the money, you have the corporations that back you, you have the ability to be recognized. People like to stick with what they know. I think that it does do a disservice. And I'm saying you need to look at their track record too. You need to look at what they're voting on, how they're voting. But I think it does a disservice to not have term limits because we get so used to being familiar with that person. But, we could start a nuclear war. We don't know what's going on. I think it does a disservice.
So what's the solution?
I think term limits are a solution.
I think succession planning, first of all, every corporation has a succession plan. What they're doing is they are getting the next person ready to move into their position. And we don't have that in the government. We don't have anybody who is mentoring. They say they are, they're not. Who is mentoring other people to move into their positions. Now, if they are, a lot of times it's, again, I'm going to show you where some of these bodies are. I'm going to show you how to swindle through this. I'm going to show, it would be nice to see a publicized succession plan to say, you know what, I'm going to take these three people and I'm going to have them shadow me for the next couple of years. And I think they're up and coming people. And I think that they're people that we can really show the way and, get them ready for the future. And I know that sounds a little corny, but companies do it all the time.
Yeah, but the difference is you're electing an individual.
Absolutely.
And in a company, you're grooming them to be put in that position.
But aren't they being groomed in the government
anyway?
There's no
election in the corporate world.
I get it, but they're being groomed in the government anyway.
I was going to say there's been plenty of
that totally undermines our election process.
It does, but I mean, if you look at
how are you going to groom someone, and then
the Kennedys have been groomed to take over.
Understand, but still, at the end of the day, they don't enter office without a vote from the people.
Right.
So my point is, how do you groom someone? I mean, do you just groom a whole fleet of people in the hopes that one of them is going to get elected? Or maybe we go back to the way senators used to be put in office. We never used to vote on this. Senators were never voted in. The state legislature said, okay, yeah, here's our man or woman, whatever, we're going to put him in.
Yeah. But weren't they voted on it?
And then later on, we never voted. The people never voted on it. When you had a senator back in the 1800s, it wasn't the people that voted him in. It was the state legislature. It wasn't until an amendment later on in the Constitution that said, yeah, now we're going to have an election process for senators. Well, do we go back to that then? I mean, maybe that would fit your grooming model.
Well, and I hate that term grooming.
Or whatever. Grooming. I mean, that's what you're kind of doing, right? You're getting them prepped for the role.
You kind of are. I would much rather see some people who are, and I'll use the term groomed. I would much rather see people who are learning the processes, who are learning the history, who are learning the people, who are learning, how the procedures work. And kind of like interns or apprentices. And if they don't get voted in, they don't get voted in. But you still have people who can move forward in the government. I mean, maybe they won't be a senator, but maybe they'll be, something else. I don't know.
Hey, I think there's value because we have seen time and time again, particularly in the House of Representatives, I believe, we've got some real wackos that got elected. And
no kidding.
It is astonishing the level of incompetence that hits that floor.
Yeah.
They're disgraceful. It's just they have no decorum. It's
so
embarrassing.
Disrespectful.
And what we see today, like during the State of the Union and those types of things, regardless of who's standing at the podium, it goes on both sides. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent, but I think
but it's true. I mean, there's a certain decorum that you have when you're on the Senate floor and when you're in that arena, and I don't care who's up there either.
But is your process or your thought process going to prepare someone to act and behave like a representative of the people?
I would be hopeful that it would.
I would hope that it would. I mean, like I said, like an internship. And it doesn't have to be one specific person. It can be, hey, I'm interested in the government. I'm interested in being a political constituent. And, you go through a process of, like, let's say a year where you do shadow. And it doesn't even, I don't even think it should be people who are in line with your political party. I think it should be all of them. I think you should, shadow Democrats and Republicans. I
Right.
think that there should be, a way for these people who want to be involved in government, to be an elected official, to get that experience before they step into the arena, so they don't look like jackasses,
Right.
so they
And
don't
so that
embarrass
they're
us.
contributing members. They're not just there taking up space. They're not just there running their mouths. They're there being contributing members of the government. So I have another question for you though. Do any other countries impose term limits that you know of?
I think there's a couple, but it's not as widespread as we think it is.
So presidential systems like Mexico, Brazil, and South Korea, they limit their leaders to 2 terms and an absolute ban on reelection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those-
Mexico does that.
That's what I'm reading.
You see the proof of that shit show down there.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
The cartel's been in.
Well, you
I
think
was
about
going to
it.
say it's the cartel.
I'm not blaming it all on that, but I think that there's a reason we have the terms set the way we are, with the Senate being the cool house, and in Mexico you're saying they don't have that. Everyone's out in 2 years, so you got this big, massive turnover,
Hullabaloo, yeah.
and you got all this political unrest that goes on, and that, I think, it was a smart thing that we've done in our government, is that at any given time, only like 1/3 of the Senate is turning over. So you have that level of continuity. And I think that's probably what contributes to the unrest in some of these places.
I think you would find that if you asked the majority of people about term limits, if they would be in favor of more than one term, one term. Would I be in favor of consecutive? Yeah, probably maybe 2 or 3, and then you're out. Because
Yeah.
I think that gives you enough time to learn the system, to contribute to the system, and to make a difference, and maybe get somebody ready to, move in. But, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, I think some type of term limit is required, because otherwise we're going to continue to have what we have today. And that's just a lot of, people who are sitting in a seat and we haven't seen anything out of them.
Right.
Tell me what your biggest accomplishment was. And a lot of them don't have anything.
Well, and if you look at like the justices, so let's look at those, because those are lifetime people. Unless they screw up really big time and get removed or they retire, they are a justice for life.
You're talking about the Supreme Court justices?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And back pre-70s era, the average for a Supreme Court justice was right around 15 years. So they would sit for 15 years and they would retire or, be elected, things like that. After 1970s era, we're looking at closer to 28 to 30 years for them sitting in their position.
Yeah.
Without, being removed or retired or anything like that. And if, you think that obviously there's a process to get to a Supreme Court justice. So you have to have experience before that. Let's say, they have all this experience before it. I don't think that anyone should have a lifetime seat, period. I don't think that that's how it should be. I think that the most time that anyone should be able to sit, including a Supreme Court justice, would be right around 18 years. Because after that, I think that, it encourages people to actually pay attention, because they're going to have to vote someone in. They don't get to just vote once for their lifetime and say, okay, I did it, I'm done, this
Yeah.
person's going to be there forever.
Yeah.
I think that it gets people involved because they know in 6 or 10 years there's going to be a turnover, and they need to pay attention to what this person did, what the next person says they're going to do, type of thing.
Yeah. And it's not like they're waiting to make their gangster money. Most of them today have made their gangster money in their first term.
Right. I've always said, hey, they need to wear those jackets like the NASCAR that has all the lobbyists' names on them,
Yep.
of all the people that pay them or
This is who's paying me
contribute to
today.
their, their
Pfizer.
election.
Yeah, Pfizer, Coca-Cola.
I'm telling you. Yeah. I mean, something needs to give. And no, I don't believe in, 2 or 4 year turnovers constantly in all of our, in all of our judicial seats, because that does cause turmoil. That does allow for more corruption and, more mistakes to be made.
I think today what we wanted to do is get our listeners to just think about, you hear so many people saying, I want term limits, and it doesn't happen. And there's a lot more to it than just saying, let's oust them. You need some experience, and we do need that rotation in there of experience, and think a little bit more about it when they say, I want term limits. And I've done it. I mean, I do want term limits, but there has to be some sort of, system and process around it so that we don't lose all of our experience at once, and that we are prepping people for the future. And whether you elect them or not, that's up to you. But at least they have even advisors. Whoever comes in that person could be their advisor. I don't know.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it than just saying, I want term limits. And I think we realized that when we got into this.
Well, and I know Dr. Domain called me out for being an ageist, but, I know some pretty sharp-witted 70-year-olds that I would absolutely elect into office if they were to run on a good platform. But things need to change.
Maybe
my point was, I think incompetence runs across all ages.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely.
Man,
have you met my kids? No, I mean,
no. But I mean, isn't that the truth? And complacency is really the enemy.
Complacency will be the death of democracy.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it.
I don't know that age is the villain. I think that complacency and, taking kickbacks and being a gangsta really doesn't help.
It all goes back to being elected, though.
It does.
I think it's our electoral base that is uneducated, perhaps. Maybe there's some people that...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, are pulling levers they shouldn't. But.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or just voting for a name that they thought that they liked.
I blame OSHA.
What?
I blame OSHA because OSHA has been protecting stupid people for how many years now? Since 1970.
I blame the warning labels. Absolutely.
I blame them. They should have let some of those people just get thinned out with the herd, so anyway.
But any closing arguments there, mother?
None from me. Any from you, Dr. Domain?
So are you saying maybe we should put a really steep staircase to the voting booths with no handrail? Maybe that would weed some of them out?
Or just make it like a little mouse. What do they call those? Those little mouse things?
Trap.
Not a mousetrap, but where they make them go through the tunnels and everything. It's like they'd get halfway through and go, I don't know where I'm at. Okay, well, turn around because you're not voting today.
God, I'm for it.
There better be cheese.
Be
there better be cheese at the end of this thing. Anyway, that's all I've got, Bobby.
Well, I've always said that if you want an argument, the two things you talk about is religion and politics. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of arguments from our listeners. But hey, we're here for it.
We love it. Bring it on.
Bring it on. But that is all of the absurdity in Senate that we have for today. We appreciate you joining us here at the Rabbit Run Studio. So be sure to follow us because we look forward to spending time with you each week. Please like us on your favorite listening platform. And if you have positive feedback, or if there's a topic you want us to discuss, or if you just want to bitch us out about this episode, drop us an email at boomerandgenxer@gmail.com. And if you have hate mail, hey, send it there too, because I get bored some days.
Yeah, no kidding.
So until next week, I'm Bobby Joy.
And I'm Jane Burt. And you're stuck with us. Peace out.
Later.